Stay out of sight, I whispered to Mew as we slink through the entranceway. If the humans get a good look at you, they'll know you don't belong here. Not with that torn ear of yours. Mew nodded and crouched even lower. I had to admit she was good and blending in. If you were a human, you probably wouldn't even notice she was there. As we crept forward, I studied her, trying to figure out how she did it. Maybe I studied a little too hard. I missed the footsteps coming our way. Ra, watch out, Capri warned. His legs tickled my fur as he slid down and hid under my belly. I looked up to see the director of Royal Loincloths closing in on me. Why, hello, Ra, the mighty. What on earth are you doing in here? Aren't they feeding you enough? The director's big laugh filled the passageway. I stopped short, but there was no reason to worry. The director was a good-natured man, and anyway, Mew was well hidden, wasn't she? I glanced back to check. My mistake. Oh ho, the director of the Royal Loincloths whistled. Ra, you sly one, is that why you've come in to see us? You have a new friend. She is very charming, he added, peering down into the corner where Mew was pressed against the door. If a little rather, you sweetheart, yes? No, absolutely not. I stuck out my tongue and showed what I thought of that idea. Mew didn't seem to think much of it either. She rolled her eyes at me and pretended to retch. The director of the Royal Loincloths looked worried. Oh dear, your beloved one isn't going to be sick, is she? The overseer of the royal residence won't like that. I was ready to retch myself. Beloved one? Under my belly, I could feel Capri giggling. The director of the Royal Loincloths shook his head. You better take her back outside, Ra, I expect. He broke off as someone called his name. Coming, my lord. Bending down to me, he whispered, That's the overseer. If you don't know what's good for you, you stay out of his way. I was more than ready to take his advice. The overseer pretended to like me in public, but he wasn't above prodding me with his foot when no one was around. If he saw Mew, he'd probably give each of us an outright kick. I hurried down another passageway, one that connected Pharaoh's private quarters with the treasure room and the great wise rooms. Hey, Mew's falling behind, Capri whispered. With a sigh, I turned back. Mew wasn't even looking our way. She was sniffing at the edge of the doorway that led towards another, wider passage. Who's slow now? I rounded back to her. Mew, you need to keep up. She touched her nose to the floor. I think I caught Teddymood's scent. No, it's gone. But she was somewhere around here, I'm sure. She started down the wider passageway. There's no point in going that way, I said. Ignoring me, Mew shook her head, then came to a halt, staring at the chamber ahead of us. I caught up with her. You won't find the child here. There's nowhere to hide. Oh, I see, she said, her muzzle wavering as she took in the dazzling room. Even in the dim light, every surface gleamed the polished columns, the smooth floors, the brilliant wall paintings of marshes and pools and gods. Farther back, a strong shaft of light illuminated a throne. What is this place? Pharaoh's audience house. I hadn't wanted to play tour guide, but I was starting to enjoy it despite myself. I rarely had a chance to show off my royal domains. This is where Pharaoh sits in state and receives his officials and visitors. There's a special spot reserved for me over there. I pointed my tail towards the little square under his throne. How proud I'd been the first day I'd taken my place there. When the trumpet sounded, I was the one who led Pharaoh to the glittering seat of power. In the flaming light of the torches, all eyes were upon me. Even the overseer had fussed to acknowledge my superiority. Since then, there had been so many ceremonies that I was growing a little tired of them. Yet some parts of the job continued to give me a thrill. I do love watching everyone bow down to us. Bow down to Pharaoh, you mean, said Capri. I shrugged. It's all the same. Capri clicked his wings as he thought that was funny, but it was only the truth. Mew was still taking in the room. The throne shines like cat's eyes. It's glided with Nubian gold, I explained. Only the best for Pharaoh. And for Pharaoh's cat, murmured Capri. Well, yes, I agreed. I have my own glided place in every single one of Pharaoh's throne rooms. I tilted my head towards Mew. As a kitchen cat, perhaps she didn't grasp what a sophisticated life I led. He has a great many palaces, you know. This is my favorite, but I have to admit the one at Iunu is remarkable too. And you really haven't lived till you've seen the throne rooms at Thebes. Though to be honest, the most impressive thing about Thebes is the cook. He's devoted to me, brings me snacks every hour. I lick my whiskers just thinking about it. Now that's what I call a palace. This palace would be better if it had more dung. More dung, Capri said wistfully. A nice big pile right beside the throne. I wrinkled my nose. Dung? By the throne? You can't be serious, Capri. Without waiting for an answer, I turned to more pleasant subjects. Now, Mew, if you look at the wall painting behind the throne, you'll see something really splendid. Pharaoh himself insisted I sit for the portrait. To my annoyance, Mew turned away. I'm not here to sightsee. I'm here to find Teddy. And you're right, there is no way she could be hiding here. I'm going back to see if I can pick up her scent again. We'd all better go, Capri warned. Someone's coming. As we bounded back down the passageway, I overheard the overseer's crabby voice calling out to the director of the royal loincloths. They were coming towards us. By the time we reached the place where Mew had picked up the chow sand, they were almost on our heels. Take cover, Capri gasped. With Capri clinging fast to my fur, I headed for the only shelter I could see, a painted frieze that ran beneath the high, bright windows. From the ground, it looked like a long strip of lotus flowers. But I knew from my younger days that there was a ledge behind it where a cat could hide. Using a huge statue of Pharaoh as a ladder, I raced up to it. Mew was close behind. We leapt into the frieze and ducked down, just in time. Below us, the overseer and the director of the royal loincloths walked past. I thought I saw that blasted up cat ahead of us, the overseer said. You saw him too, didn't you? No, my lord, the director said quickly. I wouldn't expect to find him here. He prefers to sit by the pool. In my experience, that cat is always where you least expect him to be. The overseer stopped and looked behind him, as if searching for me. I was tempted to jump onto his head, but I restrained myself. You wouldn't believe how much trouble that cat can cause, the overseer fretted. It's all right for someone in your position, Director. You only had to see the loincloths, but I had a whole palace to look after. I spent days, weeks making plans for the last royal banquet, and what does the cat do once the guests are in place? Start howling along with the court musicians. I was singing, I whispered indignantly to Mew. It sounded great. She gave me a warning look. Below us the director chuckled. I remember that, my lord. It was very amusing. Amusing? The overseer's voice was cold. I think not. Nor was it amusing when he leapt onto the table and helped himself to the spiced ibex. The director's smile had vanished. I'm sure he wouldn't do that again, my lord. I should hope not. The overseer started walking again. If I catch that cat on a dinner table again, I'll let him have it. Why Pharaoh thinks so much of the animal is beyond me. All he does is eat. Like he doesn't eat plenty himself, I muttered to Capri. He's sore because I took a bit of liver from his plate. He needs to get better about sharing. Shush, Mew said. After that, we kept still until the humans were gone. Phew, Capri said. That was close. It's a good thing you knew where to hide, Ra. I waited for Mew to thank me too, but she was sniffing at the brickwork. A moment later, her tail went up like a flag, and she mewed in a segment. Teddy Mood was here. Behind the frieze, I gave her a doubtful glance. Humans are so clumsy, and they are no good with heights. How would she have gotten up here? Teddy Mood could do it, Mew said confidently. Maybe she used that big statue to get up here, the way we did. She's small but a good climber. The day she rescued me, I was caught on the top shelf in the storeroom, way at the back. She climbed up high and squeezed behind jars and crates to find me, almost as if she were a cat herself. And after she freed me, she had to do it all backward, with me in her arms, so this would be easy for her. Still sniffing, she moved along the frieze. Yes, no question about it. Teddy Moon was definitely here. Mew took her time checking out the brickwork, then stopped short under one of the high windows. Oh dear, I've lost her again. She went a bit farther down the frieze, then came back. Yes, this is where the trail ends. If that is a trail, I thought. How about we move along with the tour then? I'd like to be back at the pool by snack time. Mew ignored me. So did Capri. They were both looking up at the window. Do you think she went out that way? Capri asked. Oh, come on, I said before Mew could answer. You can't tell me a child could leap all the way up there. Before I could say anything more, Mew sprang out the wall towards the window. I thought she would fall, but she made it to the sill. Again her nose went down. Yes, this is where she went, she called back to us. I can smell her. Mew leapt out the window and disappeared.